Ohio State football held its 8th preseason practice here on Friday in front of the Big Ten Network, in front of us. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, along with Andrew Gillis and Stephen Means. We wanted to get eyes on the offensive line. Ryan Day was talking earlier this week about guys sort of flipping around from left to right there. We'd been talking about Josh Fryer probably being the starting left tackle, and all of a sudden Jimmy Simmons is in the mix, and Luke Montgomery's name is getting dropped, and Tegra Shabola's name is still getting dropped. Stephen, first of all, how did those guys line up for the most part today with the first string offense?
So the two deep, the starters were Jimmy Simmons at left tackle, Donovan Jackson at left guard, Carson Hinsman still at the center, Matthew Jones at right guard, and Josh Fryer at right tackle. While the second string, you had Tegra Shabola working at left tackle, Austin Searville, the true freshman, working at left guard, Vic Cutler and Jacob James, I think we're both kind of at the twos, but for the most part, it was Vic Cutler as the center. Right guard, I believe, was Enoch Vamahi, but I'm thinking of it. Those were the guards, were Austin Searville and Enoch Vamahi, while Luke Montgomery was the second string right tackle. Which, the tackle thing, I mean, Ryan Day listed the four guys who were battling in those situations. It was Jimmy Simmons, Josh Fryer, Tegra Shabola, and Luke Montgomery as the true freshman doing so as well. But he also went out of his way to talk about how happy and how excited they are to have Jimmy Simmons here, which meant that he has probably spent this week doing some things, and now that he's gotten accustomed to the system, that they maybe saw a reason why they needed to shift, taking Josh Fryer away from that left tackle, which he's been repping at since back in the spring, and putting him back at a place where he's been repping basically his entire career at right tackle. So we'll see if it shifts again. I mean, we won't get to see another practice, at least right now we're not scheduled to, but very, like I said before, very similar to 21, where they started out with one offensive line, and then maybe a week and a half into things, somebody started doing some things that made them think they could shift some things around, and that's what we're seeing with Jimmy Simmons.
Could you see anything from Simmons today as far as how he was holding up against JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, that sort of thing?
It wasn't bad. I don't want to – I mean, he didn't stall JT Tuimoloau, who was standing over there, so I don't want to talk too loudly, but I thought it was a healthy back and forth in the way that one guy's a five-star, maybe a first-round draft pick, and the other guy is a third-year guy who is quality, but I don't know if he's a first-round talent or not. But I did think it was comforting in a way that made you feel like left tackle isn't going to be a problem the way that maybe we thought it was going to be in the spring.
Jimmy Simmons did not have a spring at San Diego State. He gets here in the summer as a transfer, and we obviously knew that because of his starting experience, he's coming in with a little bit of an edge over some of these guys who hadn't played even any kind of football yet, or like any real Big Ten game football. That's still an acclimation that he has to make. Does it tell you anything, Andrew, that he has so quickly, and again, we're 8 practices in, but the first practice he was still kind of hanging behind, learning things, that he's jumped ahead this far and maybe at the top of the depth chart at a place especially as important as left tackle?
I think so. I think the experience, like you said, I think that matters a lot. You know, I was watching some one-on-one drills on the defensive line, and you know there was a really nice rep with Simmons where he blocked JT Tuimoloau, didn't do anything. JT didn't do anything. It was a really nice rep, and you kind of start to think, wow, like, all right, and JT's really explosive player, really quick off the ball, great first step. You watch all these things with JT and you see the talent, right? And when you watch Simmons block that, you're like, oh, okay. Well, about 5 seconds later, Jack Sawyer walks up, and it took one move, and Jack was by him. So it was one of those things where, like you said, Stephen, it was a give and take where, Jack had it was a really nice rip move, gave him on the outside, and Simmons was just frozen. His feet were in concrete, and it was one of those reps where it was like you just had watched him block JT so well, and then Jack gets him, and it's like that was the give and take that I saw today a lot. I was trying to watch as much as I could when they were doing those one-on-one reps. So, yeah, I think kind of what Stephen said, like I said, it's a give and take with him. I think the number one thing you have to look for is just kind of building off of that consistency, and you have to make that a little bit more consistent because those are types of players that you're going to have to play throughout the course of the year. Those are two really good defensive ends, and you're going to have to block players like that throughout the course of the year. So, I thought that there were some moments where I was really impressed by him, and there were some moments where you're like, all right, this is where he still has to grow.
The thing about 2021 is the whole thing got scrambled. I mean, center stayed the same more or less, although actually, Luke Whippler, we didn't think was going to be the starting center for most of camp either, and then Harry Miller had issues. So the whole thing got flipped around, and it's really more, it almost just takes us back to where we thought we might be coming out of coming into the spring, which is Josh Fryer will just be the starting right tackle, and they'll figure out a starting left tackle. It just turned out that they had to wait until the summer to go find the guy who might end up being the guy there. But it looks like they're probably still working. It could be either of those guys, something to watch for the rest of camp. But you're starting to see the picture crystallize a little bit as to what this starting offensive line might look September 2nd at Indiana. Keep listening to Buckeye Talk wherever you can find podcasts, and get the text 614-350-3315. The first thing we did today, walking off the field, as we're walking off the field, we're sending texts to our subscribers to let them know what we saw, what we heard here at Ohio State from Buckeye Talk.